The CEO Hour with Dean Akers. The mission? To help CEOs and startups succeed in today's marketplace. Entrepreneur or established CEOs, is your business growing? Where's your business going? Let's talk about it with your host, Dean Akers.
Well, welcome to the CEO Hour. I'm your host, Dean Akers, and each week I bring you a top CEO or entrepreneur that'll share their journey. This includes their thoughts and ideas that helped them in their successes and also things they've learned not to do again. And in past shows, I know all my listeners out there that are responding and writing in at help@adjunctceo.com are giving me great comments about the journeys and how well that they help them. So today I'm going to welcome a dear friend, Dr. Dev Mangar. Welcome, Dev.
Thank you, Dean. Happy to be here.
Dr. Mangar, I guess.
Yes.
You and I know each other both ways.
You can go by Dev.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we always start our journey with that infamous day. And that infamous day was 1/30/1957. What happened?
Thank you, Dean. What happened 1/30/1957? I guess I was conceived 9 months prior to that.
Yeah.
And miraculously, I was put on God's planet here. And here I am, 62 years later, 1/30/57. Don't remember much about it, but I was born that day. I am the seventh child of 9.
Wow.
5 sisters, 4 brothers, and we were all still alive. Mom and dad's passed on.
So where were you born?
I was born in British Guyana,
Really?
South America. Yes, which is now called Guyana. Yes.
Yeah. So you're born in British Guyana. Was your father there for business or what?
So, long story. Way back when, in the days of the Brits, they brought a bunch of people from India and brought them to the West Indies, for a lack of a better term, indentured laborers, gave them a bunch of land, and it wasn't down the pathway of slavery, but where people moved over. And what's interesting, in Trinidad, Guyana, Jamaica, there were a lot of people from the Asia Pacific, i.e. India, that was brought over by the Brits and brought their culture and kept their whole family's structure together. I was raised as a Hindu, and I guess the first thing I remember was probably when I was 3 years old.
Wow. And so you grew up there. Were your parents? Are they the ones that brought you to the States?
Yes, my parents brought me here. I grew up there. Our family was pretty well off. So my dad, it was a country that was bordering socialist, communist world, so they decided to move on to the United States.
So they immigrated to where?
They immigrated to New York. We came here in 1973, and I had been a high school kid when we moved here, and I was in the British system. So when I came to the United States, I started in 11th grade.
Wow. So you didn't come speaking another language or trying to figure out what to do. You came speaking probably better English than the people you were at school with.
It was the Queen's English, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
the right English, right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
And then, of course, you and I have been together. I speak Southern English, which isn't English at all.
Not that bad. Don't worry.
So now you're in New York, and you went to high school in New York, didn't you?
Went to high school in New York, Long Island City High School in Astoria.
And in high school, did you have aspirations to go to college?
Absolutely. I vaguely remember my journey back when I was always growing up. I wanted to be a scientist when I grew up. Didn't know what kind of scientist. So came here and I was a machine. I immediately succeeded in quite a bit. Was always on the honor roll. Learned a bunch of things in college. Learned how to write calligraphy. Really? And one of the things I vividly remember, there was an essay competition for the United Federation of Teachers, and it was a $4,000 or $5,000 scholarship. I wrote the essay in calligraphy. Guess who won?
You wrote an essay in calligraphy?
Yes, and they chose my essay. So the point of that is you have to be unique about whatever you do.
Yeah, so early in life you remember or you learn that you got to stand out if you're going to succeed.
Exactly. If you want to succeed in life and do well, something has to stand out.
And then you also have to build skill sets because calligraphy had to be a skill set or a passion, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you still write it?
Absolutely. You just give me the pen. And as a matter of fact, I have 2 daughters now, and we'll talk about them later. But if they ever want to get married, I could do their wedding invitation in calligraphy.
So all our listeners out there, that's Dr. Deb Mangar. Just give him a call. He'll address envelopes. They're just about $15,000 per envelope, but he'll address them. Wow, that's really interesting. So now you graduate from high school in Long Island, and so your aspirations with your science background, all that. You went to college in the area, or?
Yes, I went to college. I have a funny story to talk about, which is another lesson learned, and a lot of lesson learned from my teachers. I was one of these kids that had a photographic memory, and you could give me 20 pages to read, close the book, and I can recite it word for word.
Wow!
And I vividly remember it in one of my courses. I took a test, and it was an American history course, and I replicated the answer word for word. So the teacher thought that I cheated.
Really?
And a lesson real learned. And, he flunked me. So I told my dad, he brought me in with the teacher, and he said, give him something to read, which he did. He just closed the book and have him rewrite the page. We did it word for word. And he looked at me and he goes, you know what? My mistake. Changed my grade back from whatever it was to an A.
Wow. Is that still one of your skills?
No, you lose it with time. I wish I had it. I mean, I could memorize 50, 100 pages and recite it word for word back.
So now you've got this. So that's a God-given.
It was God-given. It was prepping me for medical school.
Yeah.
Because I used it in medical school quite a bit.
I bet you did. So now you go to college, and where'd you go to college?
So I went to college, City College in New York back then. There was no tuition, so it was, a bunch of my friends who were in high school with me, they went off to Yale and Princeton or wherever else. I went to the cheaper route, and we all met back up in medical school. You know what the difference was? They had tons of tuition to pay, and mine was zero.
So is that in Manhattan, NYC?
It's City University of New York. They have Queens College, City College. Our famous Colin Powell went to City College in New York. So most of the kids who were growing up back then, they didn't have the resources, and I grew up pretty poor. My parents were fine, but not as affluent as other people. But it was an easy route to get through college.
Well, a lesson that I've learned is I had a friend of mine, and she didn't have money for her kids, and she got her kids online and made their job applying for every crazy scholarship you can think of. Scholarship for spotted owls, friends of friends, and both her kids ended up having their entire colleges paid for through this whole array of scholarships. And I tell people, you can still do it like you did without debt and come out. And when you graduated from that university, you went on to med school, right?
Correct. So just to back up a little bit about college, I was one of these kids who were born in a way that I realized that I had to work real hard to get what I wanted. I was really focused. You could not take me off my my lane, for lack of a better term. I blew through college in 3 years. I mean, summertime I would be doing 18, 20 credits. It was nothing. And I worked full time. So I would line my courses up at noon. I would hop on the subway and I would go work in the factories in New York and do all kinds. I was a billing clerk. I was writing bills for millions of dollars back then. And you had to manually do all the stuff. And when I wasn't working then, I would be home doing homework. And then I finally realized, I could be working and doing homework. So what did I do? Look for a nighttime guard job. So I'll be sitting there hanging out, doing my homework.
A job that didn't require a lot of work.
Exactly. So I finally figured that out real quickly, and I was able to do a combination of things so that I could get to where I needed to do. So I blew through college in 3 years. And then I received I spent another year doing masters and my master's degree. So I have a master's in hematology. And then I look back now. I guess I was preordained, for lack of a better term, to be an anesthesiologist. I was 17 years old and I was putting chickens to sleep. Let me rephrase. I was helping chickens go to sleep.
But they didn't come back out of the sleep.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. We used ether back then.
I thought you were putting them to sleep.
We will put them to sleep. We'll put them under with ether, draw their blood, and I was looking at the chicken's coagulation system when I was like 18, 19 years old.
Wow, that's just
way back when.
That's really interesting. So you figured out one thing was how to multitask.
Absolutely.
So get that job where you can multitask.
Get a job where you can multitask. The other thing I was gifted with also is I hate to sleep. I have a favorite saying, I will sleep when I die. You know who said it?
Who's that?
FDR.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So I can get away with 2-3 hours of sleep. So in a little way, in my own way, I was prepped for medical school because residency was grueling.
Well, Dev, that's a very interesting beginning of life. It sounds like God blessed you with a lot of just basic talents too.
Yes, sir. That
you didn't have to learn. I mean, you had some. If you can photographically read and stuff, that's amazing. So when we come back into session 2 or into our next session with Dr Mangar, we're going to talk more about his journey as starting med school, where he developed and grew his talents from putting chickens to bed with ether to becoming an anesthesiologist. But I want to remind our listeners also, we have that free offer for 3 Circles sales process. And all you have to do is reach out to me at help@adjunctceo.com. That's help@adjunctceo.com. I really appreciate everybody that's reached out, and I'm getting tons of comments back from all of you, both from our great guests like Dr. Mangar today and other guests, but especially the help they're getting from some of our processes. So we'll see you into session 2.
The CEO Hour with your host, Dean Akers. Connect with Dean at deanakers.com. We'll be right back.
So, you're a tech startup. You're working hard, trying to make it happen with big ideas, big dreams, and a small budget. You need to connect with people in the same boat. Now is the time to join the early stage startup group, the Innovation Center, an incubator for early stage tech firms. You can find them at tbinnovates.com. Now operating for over 14 years, the Innovation Center is a regional, national, and internationally known success story, continuing to generate momentum in Pinellas County. Twice, the Innovation Center has won the Tampa Bay Technology Forum's Excellence in Service Award and has been recognized by Entrepreneur.com as a top 10 international business incubator. And now, Tech Garage, a technology and entrepreneurship center, has joined forces with the Innovation Center to provide a co-working program in downtown St. Petersburg. Connect with the startup community. Connect with the Innovation Center. Go to tbinnovates.com. That's tbinnovates.com. And tell them the Adjunct CEO sent you.
If you're a CEO or organizational leader looking to expand your business, join the CEO Council, where you'll meet and exchange ideas with fellow CEOs without the pressures of a sales network environment. You can join today by sending an email to application@adjunctceo.com. The CEO Council is comprised of over 220 fantastic local business leaders you'll be able to learn from because they walk in your shoes every day. When you become a member of the CEO Council, you'll have an opportunity to build trusted relationships during the roundtable meetings, share your triumphs, vet ideas, and work through business challenges with peers who can provide real-world business solutions. The CEO Council offers opportunities to hear from world-renowned speakers that inspire ideas to help members grow as both leaders and individuals. Join the CEO Council. Request your CEO Council membership application today at adjunctceo.com or by sending email to application@adjunctceo.com. That's application@adjunctceo.com.
Helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to the CEO Hour. Again, your host, Dean Akers here, bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs. In our first segment, we were talking to Dr. Dr Mangar, and he was sharing his journey into New York City. But during the break we talked, it was pretty interesting. Dev, I think that's really interesting, that when you landed, there's so many of us that take for granted what we have. When you landed that first day or two, you were there and your brother took you out and you got to see some things for the first time in your life.
Yes, sir.
Which
It blew my mind because, and what I learned from all this experience, I don't take things for granted, because if I had to redo and hit the switch back, I would bring my girls to third world countries to let them see what people are deprived of and have, and how much luxury and privilege we have, and the basic necessity of life that we have here. Sometimes a lot of people view that as glory. I mean, walking out of the plane and going into the stores and looking at all the different luxuries that we have, and cars and air conditioning and phones and television, most of these other people have never seen it. And it changes to your perspective and your drive to want to succeed. And, I'll tell you, my accountant, Jolene Luce, always tells me, I know what your problem is, Dr. Mangar. I go, what? You're afraid to be poor again.
A couple cool points there. For the listeners out there, I think, and we're not going to get political. This isn't a political show.
Correct.
But when everybody talks about how bad it is here, they're really kind of missing what bad really is. Would I get that from you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I'll shed some perspective, and I'll give it, since I'm a doc, I'll give you one example. And I always say this whenever I get sick or get a cold. And I always, when I'm sick, I look back and go, darn, it's so nice to be healthy. And think about all the other luxuries. And just the basic fact that when you get sick, you sit back and you go, I'm so blessed to be alive and be healthy. So, treasure every day. Live every day as if it's your last day. And make the most out of it.
Yeah, and you definitely have. You came here, as an Indian.
Correct.
And so you were a minority for sure. And you could have had every gauntlet thrown, or probably did have gauntlets thrown, or hurdles that you would have to exceed, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but remember, I grew up in New York, and not as prevalent in New York as when I went up to Syracuse in medical school. And I had one experience, we'll talk about that, where myself and a bunch of my Caucasian friends were going out to a nightclub one night, and when a guy got up to me, he stopped me and says to me, "Show me your sheriff's ID." And the rest of the guys go, "Well, none of us has a sheriff ID. Why does Dev need a sheriff ID?" Because, well, you're not getting in.
Really?
That was the first time I experienced any kind of profiling when I was up in Syracuse.
Wow.
And again, I grew up in New York. I went to City College in New York. You don't interact and have those kinds of experience, but it wasn't bad for me. Maybe because I was so focused and driven to succeed, I didn't even worry about that.
I think that's a great message. I sent you a copy of my book, Self-Talk, a while back.
Yes, sir.
And I think that's a great message for our listeners. You could take those gauntlets or those blockades and self-talk yourself into where you didn't think you belonged, but you never allowed that to happen.
Not at all. And one of the things, and as I get older, I just look back and I don't look, my glass is always half full. It's not a half empty. And I think and I'm trying more and more to go back and make a lot of my decision the way an unconditional 3 or 4 year old child. And I think you have another book that talks about that, because we spend our lives after 4 or 5 learning a lot of bad things. And when you hit my age or Dean's age, we sit and try to figure out how do we go back to those times and make things unconditional.
Yeah, we have the filters. So now you go to Syracuse to medical school. Was that a big deal getting in that, or?
Not at all, because I had the grades and I did well, and I did research background. And one of the things they look at when you go to medical school is if you're well multifactorial in terms of your background and history. So I'd worked, I had a lot of jobs, and I was very determined. I worked on the chicken coagulation system and had a master's. So it was not as a matter of fact, I had a choice of 10 medical school to go to, and I went to Syracuse.
So when did it become a vision or a dream for you to go into the medical realm, if you will?
Again, and at the expense of being very humble, I think I was preordained to be a doctor. It just happened. It wasn't, ever since I was younger, I wanted to be a scientist, and I'm the only doctor in the family of 9, and why did it happen? I don't know.
Well, you and I've known each other for a number of years, and I've known you through your professional side, through the medical side. That's how we met, but I would almost argue, and that's why it's so cool you're on today for our listeners. I don't know where you got the transfusion entrepreneurship, but it had to have started when you were a little kid, because to be able to focus and read and to take all those things and to study while you're being a guard, you've been an entrepreneur, both sides, since you were how old? Since I was
probably 16, 17 years old. And it just happened. Part of it is on-the-job training, for lack of a better term. Now looking back through the retrospectoscope, and I wouldn't do this. I remember when I was in high school, I was looking for a job, and my guidance counselor told me, "Hey, there's a company in New York, go work there." And I was naive as like there was no tomorrow. So I went there, and there were a bunch of people outside And I was in my own world, and I didn't even know who they were. I guess they were on strike. And the owners called and asked to send a bunch of high school kids. And of course, I succeeded there quite a bit, and worked. And after that job, I worked all summer. I probably made $600 or something. So I said to my dad, I need a car. So we went to the car auction. I ended up buying, this is a funny story, Dukes of Hazzard car, the '69 Charger.
Yeah.
Right. We paid $900 or something for the car. I'm driving around one day, and this guy stopped me and, hey, do you want to sell this car? I go, yeah. How much you want to give me? $1,200. So we brought him home, or sold him the car. Guess what I started doing after that? I was going to the car auction and buying used car and selling back, because I figured pretty quickly, I worked all summer, I made $600. I could go buy cars, put them on Buylands, resell it for 2-3 times. So in my own little way, I started my entrepreneurial journey way back then, selling used cars.
Yeah, so you had the foresight to be able to see how to leverage it.
Exactly.
It just like you leveraged after you had a regular, I'd call it screw the top on job, and you go, man, I got to get a job where I can multitask, and that guard job was a perfect job where you could study, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
that's what one of my journeys started, and I think a lot of entrepreneurialism and thinking out of the box is to have the ability to be disruptive and be different. What is it? Is it calligraphy? Is it selling yourself? Is it going there shaking hands? And what's weird is, growing up as a kid, I was very, very nervous, very introverted. And then I learned pretty quickly how to come out of my shell. That's another thing I would advise people. Figure out what it takes to break the mold and be out there and thinking out loud, and don't be afraid to take risks, because if you're not a risk taker, things are not going to come back your way.
Well, most people would think, and this is probably self-talk, but most people would think people that go to be a medical doctor are taking a great career choice. But I would not say that, not know what I know you did, but not taking that path would not be typically an entrepreneurial path, would it be?
Yeah, not typically, because I had friends that were doing a residency program with me that went to Wall Street and became VC guys, and
oh really?
And they left medicine after a year. But I wasn't chasing the money. I love what I do, and my advice to people: if you love what you do and do a good job, the money comes. I don't chase the money.
And if you're listening right now, turn your radio up. Say that again, because I think that's a very, very big point that I concur with you on.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll repeat it, one of the things I do is, whatever I do, wherever I go, I give it my best. I give my 10,000%. I do a good job. I take care of patients, take care of business, and you do a good job and don't chase the money comes. You know what's
funny? I've had folks, we talk about, I need to make money, and I told one guy one time, if you make money, that's illegal.
Right. Exactly.
You earn money. And money is a result, not a cause.
Yeah. I'll give you a favorite saying I've told people the other day, and this goes back to my anesthesia practice. I'm sure we'll talk about that I'll be at the end of the street competing with the guys with a sign, and I'll probably make more money than they do.
Yeah,
it's just finding out the skill sets and what are you going to do differently to be a differentiator from everybody else.
Yeah, so for our listeners, that's a takeaway. They've got to look in the mirror and ask, are they really working on differentiating themselves? Whether they're even working in a factory job, are they taking the extra time to clean up or whatever? Right?
Yes, sir.
And if that happens, they're going to get seen or recognized. And even if they don't, their entrepreneurial thing will ultimately come out. You think?
Yeah, I think so. Ultimately, I mean, if you and it's all be present. There's a book called The Fish Book. I'm sure a lot of it that's read. And I mean, you look what those guys did in Seattle, and I use that all the time. You just got to be present. You got to take care of business, and show passion in what you do. And when the passion is present, everything comes and follows.
Well, that's, I think the listeners will really pick up on that, following their passion. I know you've done it and I've done it. And when we come back in segment 3, I want to hear more about finishing up med school and then that journey, because now we're starting to talk about that entrepreneur journey.
Yes, sir.
And again, this is Dean Akers, your host of the CEO Hour, bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs. And if you have any questions, requests, or want that 3-circle sales process, just reach out at help@adjunctceo.com, help@adjunctceo.com. And I've had a lot of folks reach out, and I'm getting a lot of feedback that it's really helping them. So when we come back in segment 3, we're going to learn about Dev's journey into what I call real entrepreneurship. See you in segment 3.
Helping established CEOs and entrepreneurs. Connect with Dean at deanakers.com. The CEO Hour continues in a moment. Helping to navigate today's marketplace for startups and mainstays. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to segment 3 of the CEO Hour. Again, I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs every week that share their journeys, their tips and ideas that have made them successful, and things they wouldn't do again. And the first 2 segments, Dr. Mangar has shared his start of his journey, and quite frankly, it's been miraculous. I'm just blown away by all the tidbits we've gotten in the first 2 segments. So now you're getting ready to get out. You graduate from med school. Was that a big traumatic change?
Yeah, so I graduated from med school. I was done. I have a funny story to tell you. I graduated in May, and I didn't start my residency till June, so I wanted to be an open heart surgeon. I was going to go to New Haven, St. Raphael's, one of the Yale programs, and I got accepted, and I had a 2-month stint where I had nothing to do. So I'm bored of my gork, and being the humble guy I am, I'm going to try to get a job at McDonald's. So I went out there, filled the application. What's the lesson learned? Don't put on the application that you're a medical doctor. I was overqualified. They would not hire me because they're worried about something wrong going and they haven't taken the liability. So I had to sit it out for 2 months. So I went to New Haven, did a year of surgery where I was on call every other night. We did 120 hours a week. And of course, being the guy who hates to sleep, and by the way, I was just sharing with Dean Akers, FDR has the same birthday as I do, January 30th. Yeah. But so I did a year of surgery residency, and the guys from Yale was tough as there was no tomorrow. Left that, went back and moonlighted in ER for a year. Then I went back up to Syracuse and started my anesthesia residency there.
So that got you figured out you didn't want to do the surgery side of it.
Yeah, 2 reasons. It was a grueling lifestyle. And the second reason is I was pretty skilled with my hands, but I did not see myself being the typical surgeons and the personalities of surgeons back then. No disrespect to my surgical colleagues, but I figure anesthesia was a better thing for me to do. And it turned out to be, and the open heart surgeons now are having tough times because most of open heart surgery are getting done with non-invasive procedures like stents,
right,
and transcutaneous valves. So it was the right decision. Against some higher power was guiding me to do this, and I went up to Syracuse and I did my anesthesia residency up there, where I met my lovely wife, and finished my anesthesia training there, and came down to Tampa.
Was she in med school?
No, my wife was working at the VA, and I met her. She was one of the administrative assistants there.
Were you smitten?
Yes. So we moved down here together, and started my journey of doing anesthesia here. Yeah.
So that journey was pretty crazy, wasn't it?
Pretty crazy, yes, sir.
Because so you come down here, and your typical anesthesiologist is going to be working for, quote, the man, if you will, right, or whatever.
Right.
And
I had
you
a boss.
You start. But when did you venture out to do your own thing?
So I came here in 1990. I ventured out in 1994 with a bunch of other doctors. We got together and formed a group called Florida Gulf to Bay and Gulf to Bay Anesthesiology. And of course, I was pretty driven, worked hard, and grew our group from myself only to about 55 docs, about 150 CRNAs, covering 22 hospitals and surgery center from Tampa all the way to Naples, Florida. I even had a hospital a surgery center out in Evansville, Indiana, and Hopkinsville, Kentucky. So we were venturing all over the country, and lesson learned from this is, don't grow too big too fast. So I had to temper down a little bit.
So what was the lesson, though? Did you outstrip your cash flows, or was it just personnel issues?
It was leadership issues, because what I found out back then was I was growing so fast, and it wasn't cash flow because in medicine the cash flow isn't bad.
Right.
I was able to grow the business. We had tons of cash coming in, but I could not get my partners to step it up and help in the leadership. So there was 3 people, me, myself, and I, running the business, and the rest of the guys were just worker bees.
Well, wouldn't you say, not any disrespect to the medical industry, but you're an outlier all the way back from when you were a kid, because you had this entrepreneur thing, whether it was buying a car to use at the auction and selling it. I mean, if I was having an interview with 50 other people in the medical profession, I doubt many of them thought about buying a car at an auction and selling it versus having a job.
Yeah, absolutely, Dean. I was one of the outliers because not only did I was the first or second top biller in the company in terms of revenues coming in, I was also doing all the HR work. I was doing all the hiring, all the firing, all the payroll, all the billing, all the collection. So, when you have the drive to get and succeed, and one of the things I would advise the viewers is there is a will, there's a way. And if you work real hard and you put your heart and soul to things and make it work, things will start flowing. Mistakes I've made, I probably should have taken a step back, not be so driven to the extent that I didn't realize and took the time to create an infrastructure of corporate America where you had a CEO, CFO, and HR person. I did it all because I just kept going.
Well, that could be part of your DNA where you sleep 2 hours a night.
I was hardwired.
Photograph. Yeah, you were already
Yes.
hardwired that way. I can't even imagine being a CEO with you being the major shareholder. That would have to be, that poor guy or girl would, I don't know if they could measure up.
Yeah, and I had some lessons learned. I remember sitting with my attorney, and he looked at me one day and he goes, "Hey, Dev, have you ever thought about selling this business?" I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You have something really, you've built up a strong book of business here, and let's sit down and figure out how to make this work." So we ended up, I said, "Okay, go right ahead." So he got a bunch of bankers to come. We sat down, we interviewed a bunch of bankers, and we chose the Raymond James guys down here. And we created a book, and we started advertising the company. And this, again, the point I'm making with this, you need to surround yourself with good people and good attorneys. And despite my partners who were all workers, I had a few of them who had some leadership skills, but we had board meetings, but it was like, let's rubber stamp stuff because the money came in. End of the year, you give checks to people and they're all happy. So we started advertising the company, and this was around 2008. Guess what happened in 2008? The bottom fell out of the market. We're about a month from closing.
Oh my goodness.
And Credit Suisse pulled a note from the lenders, and then as luck would have it, I think it was around 2012, I'm sitting in the office, some bunch of guys from New York call and go, "Hey, we're interested in buying an anesthesia practice," unsolicited. Next thing you know, fast forward, we turned the key to them, 51% was sold to them in 2012 at a pretty good multiple. And lessons learned from that is if you're ever going to sell your business, one of two things should happen. Stay on as a CEO. Don't ever give up the CEO position. So my guys and I talked, so I became the president. We hired a CEO, and the CEO that came in was not the kind of CEO we wanted. So it's a good lesson learned. Is try to make things work and figure out what direction one is going to go with this. So we turned the key over to those guys back in 2012, and as luck would have it, 2 years later, the multiples went up significantly, like 10 times. So the VC guys and I decided to turn the key again and sold the business.
And now you're out 100%.
I'm out 100%.
Well, that's actually the entrepreneurial dream. A lot of them don't realize it when they start because they just have the passion like you had the passion. When you started, did you ever imagine you would build an organization to that size?
I had no clue whatsoever. I look back and I pinch myself right now and go, did I really do this? Because the size and the scalability of what I did was really good. I had really good contracts with the payers. I had good relationship with the hospital. And the other advice I would give to people is to be able to grow and build a business, one has to have the ability to respond immediately. Every CEO of all those 22 different hospitals that I had contracts with had my cell phone. And 24/7 they could call me. And if I don't call them back in an hour, they know something is wrong with me.
And they knew that they could count on you and your team.
Absolutely.
It wasn't it wasn't a doctor group. It was a professional group that they didn't have to, of all the stuff they had to deal with, they knew they could count on you.
They could count on the team, and that's what the ability to grow the business was the ability to take care of making things work, and people may laugh at it. I had a favorite and I used all these acronyms. I used to call my anesthesia group the Burger King anesthesia group, which means have it your way. And it's, in essence, you're catering to the needs of the surgeons and the wants of the surgeons and the hospital. And the secret sauce in that is if you're able to be passionate at what you do, take care of the needs and wants, sort of what Disney does, the rest falls into place.
Well, an anesthesiologist is really a support function in the OR, right?
Yes, sir.
So it really is a service industry to the surgeons.
Yes, sir. And a lot of anesthesia docs, if any of them are listening, need to grasp that concept. The anesthesia groups that are successful are the ones that focus more so on service.
I think that's a message for entrepreneurs for sure, is focus on service. In fact, my other podcast I do is all about that this week. And so anyway, we're going to go into the final segment in a minute. And I just want to remind you that this is Dean Akers, your host with the CEO Hour. And again, we have the free offer for the 3 Circle sales process. And I, again, thank everybody that reaches out for that. We've had a number of companies tell us that has made a difference for their sales teams. And then if you have any questions for any of the guests we have had on, or for Dr. Mangar today, you can reach out at help@adjunctceo.com, and I'll get that question answered for you. And I also want you to check out the Selling Leadership Ninja Show podcast on all the major podcasting networks, and that's where you can listen to a crazy rant from yours truly every week on leadership or sales. It's about an 8 to 13-minute rant, and we're heard in over 130 countries, tens of thousands of downloads. So I encourage you to try that. So we'll see you in segment 4.
Success never takes the weekend off. Connect with Dean at deanakers.com. The CEO Hour continues in a moment.
Growth begins by understanding where you are now. For a limited time, business growth experts at Adjunct CEO will provide a full CEO physical of your business valued at $10,000 for free. Email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. This offer includes financial, marketing, and sales analysis and an outline to help you strategize future success. For your free CEO physical, email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. Florida ranks high as a new hub for business growth and innovation. Startups, restarts, and starting over are all part of the new vitality generated as geography and economic opportunity collide. As Florida's entrepreneurial ecosystem grows, many are using Synapse to grow their business. Synapse is a groundbreaking methodology that connects all personas within the innovation economy, utilizing a method that enables all users to progress in meeting their given needs while promoting much-needed community engagement. Never more than now has Florida presented opportunity to be better aligned in business, providing huge potential for greater overall results with strong collaboration and holistic leadership. Synapse is a growth synthesis platform that will allow you to take advantage and flourish in ways you never thought possible as an entrepreneur, as a business, and within the context of community, events, connections, publishing, all with Synapse. See for yourself at synapsefl.com. That's synapsefl.com.
Helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to the CEO Hour. I'm your host again, Dean Akers, bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs each week that share their journeys, that include thoughts and ideas for their successes and things they have learned along the way not to do again. Today we have Dr. Mangar. Wow, what a journey in the first 3 segments. I mean, same birthday as FDR. I mean, a photographic memory, and being accused of not being able to you answered it so perfectly that they thought you cheated and stuff. So I tell you, so now you've sold your anesthesiology practice, and that's, quite frankly, I don't think it's a start out goal for most entrepreneurs, but it is definitely the trophy that most entrepreneurs are able to put on their mantle. Now what happens?
So the other thing that after I sold the business and being the kind soul I am, I work in a big hospital in the Tampa Bay area, our number one level 1 trauma center. And for lack of a better term, I'm in love with the hospital. I'm in love with what I've done, and I do care, and I want to leave my legacy which is my purpose in life. And now I have a new purpose. What am I going to do for the rest of my life? And if people have a minute, if we live to 80 years old, that's 29,200 days, or 29,500 days. I'm 62, so I have another 10,000 days left. What am I going to do with the rest of my life?
Wow.
And it's going to be my purpose. And one of my purposes is to, I asked this question to a bunch of my, by the way, I own a hotel in St. Pete Beach. I had a bunch of managers, and I asked them all to go home and come back with three words that they want to see on their tombstone. And I don't know if the listeners are listening. There is a famous Swiss scientist by the name of Albert Nobel.
Yeah.
And if people go and look him up, and if I say the word Nobel, we think about someone great with the Nobel Prizes for peace and whatever else. Well, for the listeners, Dr. Nobel invented TNT. And Dr. Nobel was sitting one day reading obituary and read a bunch of it and said, when I die, I don't want my tombstone to say the guy that blew up the world. Hence, he put a bunch of his money into creating the Nobel Prizes.
Wow.
So we don't even think of him. So I'm sitting there. So I asked a bunch of my managers, come back and let me know. And they came back with paragraphs. And I said, listen, when Dr. Mangar dies, one thing is going to be in his tombstone. He was here. He made a difference. And that's what I'm hoping to have my legacy be. So I'm bridging into the point of where I want to go with a lot of this. I love wellness. But I think the word wellness has been over-capitalized, for lack of a better term, in a good way or a bad way. I'm looking more into rejuvenation. I'm looking more into mindfulness, longevity. I just came back from Singapore, went to a global wellness summit. I learned a lot about the Higgs particle, the Higgs boson, which is Dr. Higgs got the Nobel Prize for creating these two protons. If they ever collided, it'll be a huge problem for us. But that's the protons that energize and feeds energy to a lot of us. I'm always an uplifting person. But where do I go with all of this? I've been involved in the hotel world. I learned about forest bathing, and it doesn't mean going into the forest and putting a hose over your head and showering. Forest bathing essentially is this Japanese scientist did a study where he had two subsets of people. One of these people were in the city and another subset in the forest. They look at the natural killer cells, which help defend the body from cancer. The people who were out in the forest had 20 to 30% increase in the NK cells. And where am I going with this? Because in the forest, they found that the trees produce a compound called phytokines, which our body absorb. And in addition to that, we get into the relaxation, the mindfulness state. I'm a big fan of Deepak Chopra, and that they help boost your immune system so you're able to get into a better state. Where the other part of since I left the business is, since I sold the business, is to get involved into a company in New York where they look at the building wellness, because there is also things that goes on in the house. And if the listeners are looking at and listening to this, and I'm sure Dean will be able to share some of the website, we spend 90% of our time indoors. We never think about the air we breathe, the water we drink, the lights that shine on you, the sound on the carpet and the floor. And what these companies are doing are looking at very sustainable green life, where we're able to look at the environment we live in. I mean, cancer is a big part of our world today. Our homes built on areas that are not healthy enough, that create and produces bad things for us. Are we genetically disposed to that? How do we use the human genome? The other thing I learned in Singapore coming back is, in the United States, we wait till we hit a wall. You wait till cancer, heart disease, stroke sets in, and then try to figure out, how about starting from age 2 or 4, getting back to your book, think like a kid, live like a kid for a while, and try to get to a point where you can find a lifestyle that would mesh with health and wellness and being in a good place. I think the other thing I learned that I did recently is I stayed on with the company that bought my anesthesia group, and one of the other advice I learned is you can stay on, but you have to be a humble soul. Otherwise, the day to check cash, you should probably leave, because everything changes, and especially if you farm raise or farm grow your business, it bothers you.
Sure.
So I left after 5 years because I'm the kind of person that gives back and wanted to do the best. Most of my partners were gone. I was the last man standing. I left in June, and I've found myself even more. Now I realize that the entrepreneurial guy that I am needs to take a step back and live a little. So the lesson learned is after you sell your business, and it's not about the money, it's about what else you're going to do. But to be able to get there, you have to take a couple steps back and realize there's more to life than driving yourself hard and not sleeping. I still sleep enough to get and do things in a way to be successful, but my days are really busy. And now that I stepped out of the anesthesia world, I miss it. I'm probably going to get back into it because that's the person I am. But there's other thinking out of the box things I'm trying to work on.
Well, when you and I first met, I don't know if you remember, but I actually met you with Dr. Chris Pittman.
Yes, sir.
And I met you because we were looking at your building. And the building, you were talking about that organization that you had joined or were going to join about sustainability and having this healthy buildings. What was the name of that again?
So the name of the company is Delos, DELOS. So if the listeners have a chance, Google or put it on the server delos.com, and there is a bunch of stuff that comes up like what I just discussed. And what Delos does is they have integrated with LEED. As a matter of fact, the fellow who was the CEO of LEED is now the CEO of IWBI, which is International Wellbeing Institute, which is part of Delos. And they're trying to create a sustainability, better living environment in addition to the mindfulness stuff I talked about. And where I think this is going to go eventually is to be able to get better living and working environment. And as most people have seen now, we're finding out that sitting is like smoking. So people stand up and work because it's better for the spine. On my hotel in St. Pete Beach, we have implemented one of the categories of Delos. It's called Stay Well, where the rooms have vitamin C infused showers. They have aromatherapy. They have Deepak Chopra videos, help with jet lag, dimming of the lights, blackout shades, and all these different stuff. As a matter of fact, my hotel is it is the first hotel that's Stay Well certified in the world, if not the planet. So I'm joking around about the planet because hopefully we'll have hotels on Mars one day.
Yeah. It may be out there anyway. We just don't know about it.
Yes,
to other people. But yeah, the whole Stay Well. So really, what you've done in your journey is you've had this incredible career. You've been an entrepreneur back to you've maybe took one person's position in med school, but you created tons of great positions for people with your surgical centers, all the different stuff you've done. And now, and this, I see a lot of entrepreneurs, you're working on your legacy. And I tell you what, I'm very proud of you, Dr. Mangar, because I know the wellness and the health in your hotel, and just give the listeners a final closing point to really drive this home, the legacy and what Dr. Mangar is about.
Yeah, thank you, Dean, and I appreciate the compliments. I'm one of these guys that's never going to stop, and I'll tell you one of the things I've learned, and I'll give credit to Kevin O'Leary. I just heard him speak the other day. Whatever pitch you do, wherever you're going to go, create a version of it that you can talk about in less than 90 seconds, and people will listen, or 90 seconds or less. And my advice is stay strong, stay focused, stay in your lane, help others, give unconditionally. My new venture in life now, and it's going to be my legacy. And if you think of the world as a 4-quadrant planet, the first quadrant is what I've been in the hospital and the surgery center world. Second quadrant, I call it East meets West, which my yoga, mindfulness, Pilates, because now we're finding out in Western medicine that has a lot to do with healing and where we go. And third quadrant is financial wellness, and the fourth quadrant I call it the eat, love, pray quadrant. And if you think of a human being from the hair to the toes, every part of that person, from the brain to the eyes to the dental hygiene. I found out in Singapore, if you use mouthwash every day, you live 2 more years. The heart function, the GI tract, we're a function of what we eat. The GU system, the musculoskeletal system, the skin is the largest organ in the body. One of the advice, I get a massage once a week. Go get the massages, and puts you in a better place, and it uplifts you, and stay focused and stay to a point where you can succeed.
Dev, we really appreciate you coming on today. And again, to all our listeners, thank you so much, Dr. Mangar.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this CEO Hour with Dean Akers, helping businesses and CEOs succeed in today's marketplace. Receive a free CEO physical when you connect with Dean at deanakers.com. That's deanakers.com. And join us again next week for the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.